Hi everyone, welcome to Past Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter. This session is sponsored by Pragmatic Works, so I'd like to thank Pragmatic Works for that. And I'd like to highlight that we do have Past Business Analytics Conference coming up in May, and you can use discount code of BAVC05 to get $150 off. And also just letting you know that this session will be recorded or is being recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. And if you don't know what it is, there's the link over there. We do currently have over 15 hours of free learning now, so feel free to start watching the sessions that you might have missed in the past or just reviewing the ones that you have attended. Coming up to all over around the world, we have SQL Saturday events around North America as well as international events. So if you're around the area, just make sure that you attend that. It's usually free with $15 or $10 lunch, and most of the time you get actually really good quality sessions like the ones that we just had at SQL Saturday Melbourne earlier this month. Just letting you know, we do have virtual chapter meetings. There's another one coming up for business intelligence on April 28th, and that's, I think, a Pacific time zone, and that's with Matt Mason. So if you're into Power Query, that's a good one to attend. And there's also still a couple, I think there's one more SQL Server 2014 launch webinar series on the 29th of April on Azure, so be sure to check that out if you can. And here's a list of past virtual chapters listing as well, in case you are not aware of it. And if you are interested in volunteering with PASS, make sure that you log into or join PASS and then log in to your My PASS profile, and then check out the My Volunteering section. And if you do find an outstanding volunteer that you want to nominate, be sure to do that and send an email to volunteerrecognition@sqlpass.org. And as I've mentioned before, Past Business Analytics Conference is coming up shortly on May 7th to 9th, where I think Grant Paisley is actually going to be presenting there as well. And I think this is one of the sessions that is in the Business Analytics Conference, so it's a great preview. And if you'd like to stay involved, feel free to join us at sqlpass.org. And don't forget that we do also have a website called bi.sqlpass.org for the latest information on the sessions or anything new around the BI space. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Grant Paisley, who's actually based in Australia. So it's lunchtime here, so hopefully you'll enjoy his session on this kick-ass ad hoc cube reporting or browsing with SSRS 2014. I hope that I got the title right. All right, Grant, I will hand over to you.
Okay.
Also, if you'd like to ask any questions, just feel free to do so from the questions pane. And if you'd like to ask questions in via audio, we'll do that too. And yeah, so.
Cool. All right. Just give me a moment to kick this off.
No worries.
The auto hide is causing me issues, but that's okay. I'm there any minute. Screen to clean. Okay. How are we looking?
Yes, excellent. I could see your PowerPoint. Excellent. I can see your PowerPoint.
All right. So that's a good start. At least we have a conversation. All right, so Julie and I are having a bit of a discussion about how we'd run this. It's always a bit difficult, obviously, doing this in a virtual environment and just getting interactions from people. So what I'd like to do is I'll pause every now and then and for questions, and if you have a question, then Julie can unmute you. So just type into the chat. Either you can ask a question there, or just in the questionnaire, just say you'd like to ask a question, and Julie can unmute you, and away we go. So with that, thanks for taking the time to have a listen at what I get up to, I guess. I'm Grant Paisley, the angriest koala at Angry Koala, a consulting business based in Australia. I look after SQL Server User Group here in Sydney, and obviously involved with the guys in Redmond, and so it's a lovely community that we actually live in here. So basically I'm going to run through some things that I've found useful, and hopefully there'll be a few techniques in there that you may find useful for your clients. And with that, I think we'll just get into it. So pretty straightforward. It's pretty well, most of this is going to be hands-on, so I'll be showing you in reporting services how you build things and how it hangs together. So first of all, we'll look at the finished browser. So this is basically a reporting services report running against analysis services, and then I'll show you the steps on, well, how you might go about creating your own, and then how you might configure something like I've built here. Eventually I'm hoping to make this public domain, so if you contact me via grant@koala.com.au, and when I make that available I'll let you know. And obviously if we get time I'll have a few questions. I was involved with the fires here in Sydney. I'm with the RFS, and sometimes it feels, RFS is Rural Fire Service, and obviously it feels a bit like that when you're dealing with clients and them actually wanting reports. And one of the difficulties through reporting services is it's quite intensive to create multiple reports. Every time the user wants something different, you need to create a whole new report. And so this technique I'm going through today is how you can change the reports just by changing parameters, and hopefully we can fight those fires together. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the naming that I've used throughout the environment. The first thing is a metric. So that's some measure that you've returned. So it could be sales amount or gross profit or number of customers, whatever it happens to be. And then there's the slice. Now the slice is like an individual member, which could be bikes or it could be mountain bikes, or it's an individual member. So the slicer is that whole set of members. So that whole set of things associated, so bikes, mountain bikes, it's that whole group of things, if you like. So that's the slicer. So that's basically a hierarchy in analysis services terms. So one of the things I take advantage of a lot is when I'm talking about an individual slice, it's that slice and what's related to me. And that's what you'll see in the reports. And in the reports, actually, I highlight me in orange. So orange is usually indicating me, and then my friends or relations get shown. So in this case, it's just me and my siblings. So that's pretty straightforward. In this case, it's me and my parent and my children. Okay, makes sense. Pretty straightforward. In this case, it's me and then my ascendants, so that's all the way up through here. Actually, can you see my mouse, Julie? Mouse pointer? Am I pointing with
yes, I can see your mouse.
All the ascendants and my children. Okay, cool. So when I'm pointing with this, people can see. That's good. And this one's sort of interesting. This is me and my ascendants, which are the same as before, but also the ascendant siblings. So that's my parents, brothers and sisters, and that parents ascendant, their brothers and sisters. So you'll see how this comes into it later. This is a slightly unusual technique. And I use it in something called what's like a decomposition tree, which you may have heard of. So with that, let's just jump in and have a look at the browser itself. So I've just deployed this literally 2 minutes ago. At the moment it's called Sally Light, and effectively let's jump in and have a look at how this hangs together. Let's look at 2 lists is fine. Now at the moment I've got these parameters showing. From the user point of view, they will never see this. This is always hidden, so I'll just push that out of the way for a moment. But we can see under the covers how this stuff hangs together if we need to. So basically what I've got here is just saying, well, in North America, there was $2.8 million worth of sales, and that was for bikes. So this is, see, this is the orange one, so this is me, that's my parent, and these are my children. If I go down and say, actually now I want to see mountain bikes, click on mountain bikes. And now here are the mountain bikes, so we're now at $1 million that was in mountain bikes, and these are all the children of mountain bikes. So we're now So we can move up and down there. I can go back up to the top level, look at all products, maybe look at components. So basically I can drill around how I like. I can look at other areas, maybe drill down to the United States. Now these are the particular areas. So it's very quick for a user to bob around between these slices to get the information they need. So it's really an exploration sort of environment, which is pretty cool. Now, obviously I can have filters as well. Well, let's change this amount first. So when I click on sales amount here, it actually jumps off into one of the helper programs. Now the helper programs use something called a DSV, which I forget what it stands for, management views or something, domain management views. And that interrogates the cube and tells you what's in it. In this case, it's returning the measures that are within it. So if I were to say, let's look at gross profit, so it's now changed the metric, and I go back. And so now this is gross profit. So this is now, to all intensive purposes, a different report. It's now talking about gross profit rather than sales. We can change what we're looking at. For instance, I'm looking at sales territories here. So let's click on sales territories. Again, I can interrogate what's in the cube, and I can go maybe into the product dimension. The ones that are, these are already being filtered, are already part of the filter, so I can't select those again. Maybe I want to look at colour. So I go back, I've selected colour. So now here are the product colours. Now you can see silver is the most popular colour in December 2003, and it was across these components. So I think I'll pause there. Is there any questions at this point? It's just giving you a bit of an idea of how the overall browser would work.
We don't have any questions so far, no.
No questions. Everybody is completely amazed. They're shocked to silence, apparently. All right. So in this case, we were looking at a single measure. We can have that one, multiple metrics. So what's happening here is that the same concept, I can move North America. I'm actually showing my signals. So that means I can just more easily move between things here. This is the normal, drilling down lower and lower level. But you notice in this case I've got a whole series of metrics. And these are tuples, so I've got a combination of sales amount. So this is showing me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the last 5 months worth of sales, and then the sales for the whole quarter, and then the order quantity for the quarter, and then what have we got here, gross profit and freight cost. So basically what this is tuples of information, and you see that a lot with reports where you've got certain values and then for certain measures, but then for other measures you want it at the top level, particularly for budgets versus you've got actuals over a period of time and then you want budgets for the full year, that sort of thing. So this will support that environment, and it's all still interactive. And it's still driven by these parameters. And one of the really neat things about that is because this is just done by parameters, we can create a new report just by creating a link report, changing the parameter values, and I get a brand new report, and the user just thinks they've got their own report. It also means the user themselves can go into here and they can say, and where do we do this? View favorites, feeds. How do I add it as a favorite here? Is it that one? Add to favorites. Okay, so I've just added that to the favorites bar, which is this T1. And you see at the moment, if I just go back and go back to T1, so look how it was originally. So here's the original report with bikes in North America. If I go up here now and click on my shortcut, you notice that should have been a different environment. Anyway, at the end of the day, you can save the reports with the parameters into the favorites. In terms of the report itself, the end product. So with that, let me jump back in here. All right. So any question? Any? Awesome. Okay, this is too easy. Oh, I should have video so I can see my happy smiling face. I am happy, I am smiling. Okay, this is a browser I have done in the past. It's the same sort of concepts. It just is a bit clunky to use, so this is like a new improved version, I guess you'd say. And you've seen, how we can grab information from it. So, what's the first step in doing this? Well, say that a client has said, I want to see sales and gross profit for different bikes in December 2013 and the sales territory of North America. So that's what we've got from our client. So how do we go about doing that? Well, let's have a look. Okay, so this is what we want to see. Okay, so hopefully I'm pointing to the AdventureWorks database. If you have a look on here. All right. Look at this database, which is an analysis services database with the AdventureWorks cube on it. So this is what we're dealing with, and that's the metadata for that just here. And we said, let's start typing. Well, first of all, that's not going to work very well. Let's comment that out. I'm going to go select that. All right, so sales summary looks good. What do you want? Sales and gross profit. That's sales amount and gross profit. That's going to be on columns. And let's see, for different bikes. Okay, so that's bikes. I know where bikes is. Bikes is under product. Product category is this guy. Members, all members, there's bikes. I'll just show one to start with, just the bike itself. And this is on rows from this database. Let's see if I typed it correctly. It should have. We have indeed. All right, so that's just one bike. So that's for all bikes. That's the sales amount, gross profit over all time. Okay. Now, in fact, they said December 2013, so I guess we better do that. So that's where. So now we're going to jump into the time dimension, which is this one. We'll go by the calendar year, why not? Way down there. Here it is, December. All right, let's execute that. Okay, so far so good. So that's for that particular month. If we want to do it for more than 1 month, so more than, we want to do it for North America now. So jump into here, I think it's sales territory, North America. Should work. That's right, this is cross-product from. All right, what have I done, Julie?
Looks about right.
That should work. I'll cheat. Cheating's good.
Oh, the quickly brackets. Sorry, yeah. The first one on the top select. Oh, actually, is it the top one, the bottom one?
Thanks, right. It's all right. I'll do it in different
Sorry,
way.
the where close.
This is how. This is what I'm going to do because I can. It's on the box. I'm going to do that.
So
and we'll just keep it for, we'll just do a where clause for that for the moment, just for the purpose. So, because you
might need the normal brackets for the where clause. Or, sorry, you just pasted it in there.
No, this is...
oh, sorry, earlier when you had the...
My bad. That's okay. So there's a fallback position. Where's 1? Let's see what that looks like. All right, that'll do. You sort of saw me build it. I failed slightly just because I had my brackets in the wrong place. But in effect, this is what I had originally. It was just, let me show you. I just had this particular one here, which is bytes. Yeah. So then what we can do is say, okay, we'll take that same thing and take the parent and then that same slice and show the children of that slice. So there's bikes, there's the parent, which is all products, and they're the children, mountain bikes, road bikes, and touring bikes. Okay, everybody happy? I'm happy because I have the query running correctly. Okay, so what? Okay, so this is like a handcrafted query, which is giving us the results. But if we were to put this into a report, this would just be one report. So how have I generalized this? How have I made check reporting services into making this work correctly? And what I've done is the following. This is the same query. I'll just run it, show you it runs. Okay, so exactly the same query. But you notice what I did was, first of all, I set up some metrics. So I set up a set called P metrics, meaning the parameter metrics. And I set it to the first 2, the gross profit and sales amount. I set up the other set, which is the bikes, parents and children. I've set up the filters as everything else, which means the query is now select all the metrics on columns and take the row set and cross product with the filters on rows from the Vectorworks. Everyone happy so far? Really, it's just taking what was in here and pushing it up into into the set area. So let's look at what we do next. So next what we do, you say, okay, so now I've got it set up like that. That means I can start creating some new measures. Let me run this to show what it looks like. So this measure 0, measure 1, so measure 0 name and measure 0, measure 1 name and measure 0. So basically what that is really saying is measure, well, if we do all the square brackets you see everywhere, that's actually technically measures dot M0 as the first item in the set of metrics. Okay, you'll notice that that'll run just as well. But it's just easier to get rid of the visual noise and just have it as that, which is assumed it's a member when you do it like that. So what's happening here is basically we're saying for this particular row that I'm bringing back here, tell me what measure this is. Okay, tell me the name of the measure, which is the names, and tell me the value, which is just the metric itself. So that means that no matter what metrics I put in here, if I change, I don't know, I think there's something called freight amount from memory. Freight amount. Sorry, let's start again. There isn't something called freight amount. We know there's gross profit. Sales amount already there? Is that what was there? I can't remember. Anyway, if I typed in there, I suppose what we could do is drag it in, that'll work. Let's do order quantity, why not? Okay, so C has picked up the name, order quantity, and the value for order quantity. Everyone happy? Now, because these columns are now consistent, that means that when I put it in my report, I just need to show the first measure in the first column and the second measure in the second column. And the name of it is the name at the top, and the value of it is the value in the body of the report. So that's pretty well all there is to it. Any questions?
Okay, we've got a couple of comments here and a question as well, but I think
Sure.
You've highlighted a few of them anyway, but I'll bring it up. So we have a question from Andrew. How is this different? How is this different in terms of functionality which we have in SSRS 2012, as it looks like it's a parameterized report? I think this is talking about what we saw earlier in the demo.
Yes. So basically, what I didn't make clear and should have is that I built this actually on 2008, and it'll all run in 2008, well, from 2008 onwards, it's the same code. 2014, I only ported it to that about 2 weeks ago. And, you know, there's really been pretty well no changes in reporting services, so it'll run with the older versions. Any other questions?
Yes, and Brian Brown made a good comment here that I think he was sort of wondering about the dynamic MDX around it, and you just showed that, so he's, I think, pretty happy about that. Okay,
cool. Good.
And a couple of the and a couple of the comments around the MDX bit to do with the parentheses, but we can talk about that later.
Okay, yeah, so that's more a case of when to use to do with tuples versus, Interestingly, if you want to build some of this, yes, you do need to know about how that works together. At least even I'll get confused as to what goes where sometimes. But yeah, that's to do with tuples versus sets and things like that. So that'll have to be another session. Or you can stay on later and I can have a chat to him. Okay, so anything else?
I think
all right.
That's
so basically, this is the same thing again, but this time, that's it. All right, so this time all of this is exactly the same thing, except I'm now passing in a string. So instead of hard coding the values, I'm now saying, well, actually, I'm still hard coding the values, but I'm doing it as a string. And the reason I'm doing that is that means that in the report, I can now pass this in as a parameter, which is a multi-value parameter, which has the first value, gross profit, and a second value, measures amount. So this is exactly the same code, but this code will run basically inside reporting services. So I think that's really the guts of it. Do you have anything else there? Oh, I'll just show you this briefly. So basically, you notice when I clicked on something to go off and get a different different metric, not measure, or I go and change the slice, it was actually interrogating the cube. And the way I interrogate the cube is with DMVs. So these are some examples of the ones I used. So if I click on, if I run this one, for instance, it gives you the measure and then what measure group it's in. What else have we got here? We can look at this one. What's that one called? That one's the hierarchies. So this is giving you the information about the hierarchy. So the name of the hierarchy, the default member, and things like that. So basically, when I'm running off and collecting information, it's actually pulling it out of the cube. And this I'll make available as well, which is there's a whole set of metrics for doing that. In fact, just this morning, literally 15 minutes before I jumped on, we cracked the fact that one of the parameters here, actually I'll grab it. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, you can interrogate the cube to find out the name of the catalog or the database. And what it means is because because everything's been loaded in as parameters into reporting services, if I want to point to a different cube, I have to change all the parameters. Well, what we're going to be doing is loading the parameters from a database. And the annoying part was when we were sitting here working was I'd have to physically change all the parameters. So what we're doing though is if we load it from a database, and we load it from a database based on the catalog, i.e. actually the database itself, and I can interrogate it in the report, then that's now becomes the default. So literally all we do now is we change the connection to be a different cube, and as long as I've got parameters in my database for that cube, it'll load up. So that's quite cool. So yeah, DMVs are very, very handy. So let's jump back in here for a sec. Okay, so we went through, this is just, this is in the slide deck, so if you need to have a look at how it hangs together, the code's there. What I'm going to show you now is what that looks like inside reporting services. So, here I am out in the wild blue yonder. Okay, selfies. What's that all about? Dynamic rows. All right, it's meant to be a reporting services session, so we should jump into reporting services. Here's reporting services.
While we're jumping to reporting services, there's a question that I managed to miss earlier. Is it possible to change, is it possible for the user to change the cube from the report from your first demo?
For the user to, no, the user, one of the restrictions is the report, because it's, once it's deployed, the deployed report is pointing to a particular data connection string, so it's only connected to one place. So the user can't change the database. It'd have to be a different report. But interesting, you wouldn't have to change the report. Literally, you could just publish it into a second folder and then point it at the new data set, the data connection, and it would run.
Right. Also,
once you've set up the background parameters.
Okay. All right. So Brian also asked or mentioned that, or he's wondering if you have tinkered with ways of automating the generation of the MDX scripts that you're showing.
You don't need to do anything with them because they are basically the MDX. Oh, actually, yes, I have. Let me remind me if I don't cover it later, but there's something I call style, and style is how you show the information. So it's sort of towards the end of the presentation, so I'll show you a little bit of that. So,
okay. All right. Excellent.
Okay. So basically, let's run this for a sec and see what's going on. Oh, good. I've been caught out, Glenn. I got my general manager with it. We're fighting each other. Okay, so you now go to see how to set this up correctly. All right. We had it pointing at something different. All right, available default value for this sales summary is fine. That's correct. The metric default value is sales amount. That's okay. And the slice. That's not going to work. So let's put our bike one in. We can go back to there. There's our bikes. I'm really glad that worked. Okay, so one is the cube we're looking at. The second parameter is the metric. The third parameter is the slice, which in this case is bikes, XC bikes. So what happens is when I click on all products, you'll notice that it's the selfie, it's that photo you're taking of yourself. I've actually called the report, and all I've done is passed in what I've clicked on. So you now see that that's at the all level. If I click on clothing, it's drilled back down. Okay. Obviously, if I change the slice to be in some other slicer, then that changes as well. All right, so what's some of the code look like that produces this? So one of the first things is we have a look at the properties here. Got the alignment, this left alignment here. Basically, it's saying, well, depending on what level you are down inside the code, it'll indent it or not indent it. So that's the first bit. Oh, that's interesting. I'm actually completely off the screen. That's right. What else have we got? The where's the background color? Okay. So this is saying if the row key, so if the measure, sorry, if the slicer row key is the same as the slicer that you passed in, then it must be the one I'm interested in which case change it to white, otherwise don't change the color. So that's that one. And you'll see that that orange mark, by the way, is just a little slice just here. You can't even see it, but it's a little cell just there, and it's the same thing, that it just changes to orange. So that's all that's happening here. We have a look at the data set itself. You'll see that this is what we talked about. I just passed in the metric and the slice, and basically I'm just converting it on the fly to find out the row key, the label, the level, everything about what you've passed in, and for the metric itself, what the value is and what the label is. Makes sense? And on the rows, I just say grab the whatever slice it is, get all the ascendants, and then get the same slice and get all the children. So that's it. So when you're saying about the dynamic query, you don't really have to, this is sort of looked after. Later what I do is I actually replace all of this with a trick, and I'll show you that later. Okay. Any questions at the moment?
No questions?
The basis of, okay. You'll notice that there's actions. So if you have a look at the actions for this, you'll notice that the metric is just whatever the metric that was passed in. The slice is the row that you clicked on, the key of the row you clicked on. The cube is just the cube, so that's all that happens there. If you click on the heading, which is this one, product categories, it jumps into a separate report, which is one of the slow reports. It actually runs a lot slower when you're in development mode. So this is one where you can say, okay, I may want to look at some other hierarchy. Maybe look at color again. Color's always fun. So select color and click the back button. It should work in a second. Go back. Okay, so now we've got colors. So this is one of the building blocks, if you like, for how we build up the environment. There's another trick here too. This is a bit of fun. One of the things I always, actually this is, let me go back a bit. So it makes more sense to do this in that environment. So this is the same data, it's just in a decomposition tree one. Now remember when we talked about the ascendants and showing all the siblings associated with it? So if I click on mountain bikes, for instance, the mountain bikes ascendants are bikes and all products, but I also need to show the siblings of bikes. So this is a nice decomposition tree because it means I can very quickly move and actually want to go straight to clothing, etc. So it's a nice environment for moving around. Now it's exactly the same code except for one very small bit, which is the part where you're showing what's on rows. Instead of you showing my ascendants, I'm showing the ascendants and siblings. That's a bit of a trick in the way to display it. So I think that's all I want to show there for the moment. Any other questions? Okay.
We do have a question from Jack.
Sure.
I think he joined a little bit later, so just to clarify as well for the other audience, is Sally Lite third-party tool or add-on to Visual Studio 2013?
So Angry Koala has a product which runs against SASU, which is an accounting package, and also Xero and things like that. And what we're doing at the moment is I'm developing this as the front end for it. So that will be Sally Lite. But there'll be I don't know whether we'll call it Sally Lite and make it available, or whether there'll be, called the Angry Koala browser, but there'll be a version of this that I'll make available. It may not be the full-blown part, but I'll make part of it available. Okay?
Okay, and we also have another question.
Sure.
Do the ascendants self-organize or do you have to specify that?
The ascendants are organizing themselves because, remember I bring back the row, actually I might show it to you, it's sort of, actually no, we've got limited time, I don't have time. But effectively, when the data comes back, I group each column by the row. So this is by the level, sorry. So this is 0 level, this is the first level, this is the second level. And then within each row, I sort it by the value itself. And you'll notice that's one of the big things about this whole environment is whenever you're going in to select something, it's always got the measure, in this case, sales amount, as you're selecting, which works really well because often you may have 2,000 products, but that particular 3 days you only sold 10 of them, in which case when you go in to pick, it'll only show the 10 that you've that have sales for that day. Okay? Good question. All right, let's jump back into this so we can finish on time. Okay, so we went through and show you how the dynamic rows were working. So this is just some code that allows you to, this is just the code from within the report to show you how you manipulate the report. We showed you the dynamic rows, the self-calling, so it's calling itself, and the metadata driven, which means to get the parameters to change what we're looking at, we actually go to the helper reports and interrogate the cube, get the data and bring it back, whether it's a slice or whether it's a metric. And that's just a bit showing you what that looks like. Okay, so how do you extend that? Well, actually I already showed you the extension of that, and that is the expanded version. So I actually demonstrated that to you already. So that's the part where it marches across from left to right. And as you can see here, the only difference, it's a little complicated. We use a, the first thing I have to do is say whether it's an ancestor, that's what that one's doing. And then that's the code for generating it. So I won't go into it now except to say that you use a thing called generate. And what it does is it just takes the ascendants, and then for each ascendant gives the sibling. And that's what this sibling bit's doing. It's adding the word sibling to each of the ascendants. But partly you don't really have to know too much except that it works. Because all you do is change parameters, and I'll show you how easy it is to do that. That's the results of that data. Some of the, again, this is the formatting I talked about, the padding and the highlighting. And so now I need to show you how you utilize this for real. So let me escape out of this and show you how you actually use this. So basically you've got these ones I'm showing you here is VES, which is very simple. So it's really just showing you how it hangs together. The real ones look a little bit different. So let's have a look at a real one. So U is for utility. So this is the utility that takes one dynamic metric and one slice. So you see there's a few more parameters here. You'll notice the basic concept. Let's just run it first so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so you see it's pretty much the same, drill up and down, all the same sort of stuff going on, but the way under the covers it works is subtly different. One of the things, for instance, hang on a second, can you answer that please? Okay, one of the things here is that the metrics, you see is just a list of metrics, so that I can have more than one metric now, and I can also have more than one slice. So at the moment I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slices sitting there. Yeah? Now, the cool thing about this is at the moment to run this report, to change the content here, all I say is actually I want to see the second slicer. Now that may or not work because it's a bug. Let me do that differently. So slice number is this one. Default value. Change it to 2. Preview. Okay, so now it's reseller. So that's the second in the list. So if you want to have a look at, let me go back and show you the slices in this environment. So there are the slices. And this time we picked up the second one, so 0, 1, 2. So I picked up the sales channels. So in other words, this part, all you pass into it is a set of metrics, a set of slices, and which metric you want to show and which slice you want to show. That's it, which means it can be called from somewhere else. So if we have a look at that report we're looking at, which was 2 lists, you notice its parameters are a set of metrics, a set of slices, and I'll get to the settings in a minute. But that's really the key to it. It's just those 2 things. And in this case, these aren't so important, because what happens is for this first cell, what you're saying is for this particular cell, the metric you want to show is the first metric, which is 0, but the second slice, which is 1. Okay, but you'll notice for this one, it's 0 and 2. So you're actually showing the next slice along. So what's fascinating here is, let me run that just to show you that it runs. Okay, so North America and bikes. So if I want to create another one here, literally I go copy, paste, line it up, grab the properties, go into the parameters, and instead of 2, make that 3. That's it. We run that now. We now have a new report. Look, sales, and away you go. So with these building blocks in place, you don't really have to know a lot about what's going on under the covers. Literally, it's just changing the parameters and getting them running. Now, to answer that original question we had, I do a few tricks. And here's one of them. Okay, now this used to be a lot simpler, but I had to modify it a little bit. But in essence, what we're saying is take the ascendance of whatever the slice is you're passing in, and then take the children of that. Now, the rest of this is just doing a few things like, well, only return the number of rows that you've told it to, so you don't get hundreds and hundreds of rows. One of the parameters is how many rows you want to bring in, and that's really the guts of it. So it's all the ascendants and the children. That's all that's doing. And what happens is, under the covers, is the parameter that's going into the MDX is CP filters. No, sorry, let me go into this guy. See this one, CP row set? CP row set is what's getting passed in, and that's what you want to see, and the default value is basically what it's saying is, it's saying in that slicer style, which is the slicer style there, that's the one we're just looking at, it says replace slice with the appropriate slice, replace metrics with the metric you're at, replace row count with the row count that you passed in, so that's just the number 10, and then the filter is just all the other sets. So basically you can configure this now, really, once you sort of get the hang of it, to do anything you like. You can show whatever you like in rows and columns based on what's passed in. So with that, I think that's pretty well it. I've shown you the basics of how to throw it together. I've talked about self-calling reports. I've shown you roughly how you could configure this as a developer and extend it. Eventually, I'm hoping you can just have parts and just drop them in, and they should know what they're doing, and literally you just change that one number to say, oh, I'll show the third slice or the fourth slice, etc. So with that, I'll throw it open to questions. Wow, they're shocked into silence.
Yes, pretty much. So, so yeah, I think personally, I think it's really cool to see this because I don't know. To me, it's a bit of a kind of reminds me of Power View, where you can just click and start browsing. Yes. So it's really cool to see. There's a question from Martin here. Has the metadata selection passed back into the report?
Okay, so if we have a look at one, let's look at select metric. This is the one that is selecting a metric and may or may not run depending on the parameters. Yeah, it's a better run. It is going to run. Good. Okay, so basically at the moment it's sales amount, and I click on gross profit. That selects gross profit. When I click on the arrow, it goes back to the calling report. And one of the parameters you'll notice is called calling report. So one of the tricks here is that you can have lots of different reports all calling this report, and it knows where to go back to based on the calling report that you passed in. So if you have a look at the properties of this guy, what's he do? Well, really, he just passes back all the current parameters. So this isn't really the bit that's, so you see the metrics is the metric, it passes back all the metrics, all the slices, all the settings, really everything. So that's not where the magic happens. The magic happens when you click on this guy. So you click on that guy, it calls itself. And you'll notice here, here's the trick. Okay. Now if I had a koala to throw out to you, I'd ask you what I'm doing, but I've only got virtual koalas, so. Now what's that doing? Okay, it's a very long bit of code, well not that long, but all it's really doing is it's saying it's going to replace the value that's already in there. So it's starting it. That's the one you just clicked on. Okay, that's the key of the row you just clicked on. So that's the measure. So if you clicked on gross profit, that would say gross profit. So it's saying what was in there before, what was already in the list of metrics, the one that you picked, which is number 3. So this says 3. That bit there says number 3. So change whatever the third value was, which was, say, I don't know, order quantity. So change order quantity to gross profit is what that's doing. So in that list of parameters that you've been sent, it's replacing what was there before with the value that you passed in there. Does that answer your question? Is he happy?
Waiting for
his smiling?
Yes. He said, yes, thanks. No, that was really awesome. And he's smiling too, by the way.
He's doing a real smile. Yeah, that's
yes.
This is the most disconnected presentation technique you can have, this stuff, which is crazy. Anyway.
Emoticon smile.
Very cool. All right, anything else from anybody?
Just waiting. Okay, so there's another comment from Brian. He said, I like that he's comfortable sharing the guts of this product, even if this is a light version. It's still an awful lot of it, so a lot of IP. So yeah, I do agree. It's really awesome.
Oh look, basically, yeah, look, I spent over a year working on an earlier version, and this one's a lot slicker. And yeah, I'm happy to make at least part of it available. It's it's part of the community, and we'll help each other. In fact, if I can get it working right, and one of the reasons I haven't released it quite yet is I'd love to get it to a point where, as a group, we could add widgets. For instance, one of the things here that I was playing with that isn't working quite yet, but I'll run it just because I'm a dangerous sort of guy. Is this one? Okay, it's got the wrong parameters. But basically, it's a year-on-year chart. So basically, the idea would be you could drop that chart in as one of the visualizations. And so it works. It actually works well. The trouble is, one of the questions about the ordering is quite important in this case, because the order in this case, it has to be done in year order. Otherwise, the graph doesn't look right. At the moment, I haven't worked out how to do that. Except at the moment, I only have the name, which isn't going to work, or the value. And sorting by value doesn't going to work. But the idea is that we could have different visualizations which act like cells within the report, and then as a group, we can build things and just drop them in. And because we always send the same parameters between the reports, which is a set of slices, a set of metrics, and a few settings, then we're good. And the beauty is those settings are flexible. So the settings is a multi-valuable set. So you may need a report that needs some extra settings. Well, that's fine. You just add it into the settings and pass it around. And the helper programs have no idea what to do with those extra settings, but that doesn't matter, right? Because they receive them, you change a metric and then you pass it back with those same set of settings. So the calling program knows what to do with those settings, but these other helper programs don't. So I'm really trying to get that fairly robust. And once I do that, it'll be helpful for what we build. But I think as a community, we could actually build it up as something which has a whole lot of these parts, and away we go. So, yeah.
Excellent. We have another question. So this is from John. Is there a need to worry about SQL injection attacks through your strings? I'm guessing through the parameters.
That's a very good question. I wonder what they could run in. No, because the queries themselves, the parameters themselves, are injected, if you like, into an MDX code as part of a set. So as soon as you try and pass anything different in there, like select, the username of somebody else, it'll just fall over because the MDX will just say, I don't know what that is, and it'll just break. Which is one of the difficulties with the environment. I just changed that style sheet with an extra bracket or something. A bit like when I was handcrafting the MDX, you make a small mistake and it'll just blow up with no friendly messages. So yeah, no, SQL injection wouldn't be a problem. Anybody else?
Yeah, and there's another attendee, Brian, I think. He said in regards to the SQL injection thing, well, it's going against SSRS, not SQL, so although some SSRS cubes permit drill through, yeah. I mean, if it was doing...
if it was generating SQL statements, complete SQL statements, then yeah, you have to watch out. But in this case, no.
Yeah, exactly.
From where it's going.
And I think if it was doing XMLA statement or anything like that, then that might, be dangerous to the cube. But from MDX point of view, it should probably be okay unless they. I think it's just not going to render properly if they put something a bit nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that will be fine. All right. Anything else?
Let's see. We have. Oh, there's another one. Yeah. So Brian again commented that you just have to keep the sensitive columns out of the DSV. That's very true.
Yes. Sure. Yeah, that's right. We are using one at the moment, which is it's the properties to pull up the catalog name, but it's a single query which there's no parameters to, so that's not going to return anything except the name of the database. So.
And Martin also added, I assume it honors all security settings on the cube?
Yes, it does. Yep. So it's the beauty of reporting services is you can have the same report and person A can only see their sales territory and person B will be able to see everything based on security within the cube itself. And by the way, once we've got the parameters coming out of the database, all you need to do is connect it to a new data source, and then in the database change the default set of parameters, and it will run. What was the point of that? Oh, the point of that is the name. There's no string to. There's the one limitation in this environment is I'm doing all these tricks to trick reporting services into returning what we want. For instance, metric key. Metric key is that, right? So basically I'm turning the key into a measure so that I can return it. So doing all that. The only thing you can't do in MDX is right at the bottom here is that. You can't actually say from AdventureWorks as a string. It actually has to be the real name. So for you to run this against against an adventure, well, what I did for AdventureWorks is I created a perspective called model. Okay, once I did that, and then it works. And the reason I've done model is because it's a very long story to say this works against tabular models. Works beautifully against tabular models. So no changes, it just runs. And so and in fact in our environment that's what we're running against is tabular. And in tabular the default name is model and no one really changes it. So at the end of the day this probably will be okay. But if you ever need to change it, that's the one thing you have to change throughout the code. Okay, good question.
Excellent. So this actually works for both multidimensional and tabular.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Good to hear that.
Yeah, in fact, our product, which is running, actually runs in that environment. Oh, by the way, just a 2-second plug.
Sure.
Sure. Just give me a second. So this guy here, we're developing a product because we can, right? I don't know why, but we are. And it's along the same sort of, which is why it'd be a Sally Lite. This will be the Sally not Lite, if that makes sense. So if I connect this to a tabular model, it's the same sort of idea where you've got sort of multiple charts here. I can select particular slices by clicking on them. If I click on the right-hand side, it does an AND. So this is these three supplies together. Yeah. If I want to change what I'm filtered by in here, it's the same concept. You go off into another environment and you say, actually, no, I just want to see the good guys and George's cameras. Go back. So now good guys. So these are all now filtered by the good guys and George's cameras. I can change the number of periods I'm looking at. Maybe look at 9 periods. Okay, so now this is now year on year. So, and it's all super fast. It's all like almost hand rendered, and so it can handle sort of thousands and thousands of rows without issues. So that's one of the things we're playing with in the background as a what will be our front end. And the reporting services is my answer to a similar environment. So there you go. That was just an aside.
Cool. That looks fantastic. We have one last minute question. I think we'll close.
Last question.
Yep. Just because it's really interesting, by Brian again. He's an active participant for today. How did...
he wins the Super Koala.
Yeah, definitely. How did Grant get around the constraint parameter of string to set or str to set? It has...
Yes,
what is it?
I'll tell you exactly how I got around that. I know exactly what he's talking about. Brian obviously is been where I've been lots of times. And the trick is the following. Let me go, so I'll show everybody. Actually, it's not that interesting unless you've actually experienced it. This is what I did. Instead of having it in a where clause, instead of a where, and then having a string to set in here, because you can't do that. If I have once I create a set, I can't put it in the where clause, but you can put it in the body of the rows. So basically what normally goes into the where clause down here, I put into the body there. Once you do that, the results are the same, right? Because it's basically the cross product looks after the fact that that's that one member, that's that one member, that one member. So the results are the same. It also means that the data's in here for you to interrogate. So that's how I got around it.
Right. Yeah, and performance-wise, it should still be okay, I think.
Performance, yeah, I was a bit worried about that, but yeah, the beauty of this environment is it's never doing very much because you only ever, there's individual queries for each cell, and that cell is only ever looking at 1 or maybe 2 dimensions. And if it's looking at other dimensions, it's only ever one cell and there's one member in those other dimensions. So it's never really working very hard.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's really quick.
Interesting.
Cool.
All right, thank you so much for the presentation today, Grant. That was really amazing. Good to see that SSRS still has got really powerful stuff that people can explore. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is. It is quite powerful, and thank you very much, Julie, for helping out. It's been very difficult without you, and for your role in the community as well.
All right, excellent. Okay. Thank you. Well, just to let everyone know as well that this session is recorded, so I will post the recording on our YouTube channel. To make it easier, it's actually youtube.com/user/pastbivc, but if you can't remember that, go to our website, bi.sqlpass.org, so you should be able to find a link there as well. So, all right. So, excellent. Thank you, everyone. And for those who are...
And if anybody... And say hello. If anybody's at Pass Analytics, make sure you say hello.
Yes, definitely. I won't be joining you, but I'm sure that it's going to be a kick-ass event.
It should be fun.
So,
All right.
yeah,
All
excellent.
right.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.